I would love to honor everyone's time and get started here this morning. Um, the topic this week is about anticipatory grief. And we're actually going to start out with a really interesting meditation. And it's kind of about time bridging. And when I say that, I also mean about body bridging ourselves in a different kind of way. So I want to kind of walk through that a little bit before we do this, because what happens in our world is we will get sucked into like our cell phone, right? And then all of a sudden time has passed and we've got all these different things going on for us all the time, especially in the rare world. We've got a ton of things to juggle and we need that time for ourselves, but we need that time to address things outside of us. And so what can happen is kind of a disassociation that happens around us or inside of us. And in that, it's not that there's an inappropriate thing happening, but it's more like there is a lack of continuity for ourselves in whatever action we're taking, as well as what feels like needs to be addressed in our world. And so what this meditation does is we start with the inside of ourselves, and then we move just a little beyond ourselves. Like if we put out your palms in front of you, and this meditation is actually done best if you're doing it in front of a window so that you can really see far away from you, because we're going to move through different distances, starting within ourselves, moving out to our palms, then moving about 10 to 15 feet in front of you, and then as far as your eyes can see, and then imagining ourselves as a tiny speck on this earth. So we're going to rotate through those, and it's going to happen fairly quickly because we're going to do it for sets of 3 breaths. Okay. So I don't want to get too much in our heads about it because it's really an experiential thing. But I think that it actually partners really well with the topic of anticipatory grief, because anticipatory grief has this past, present, and future aspect to it. So we can, be in grief around something that has already happened. And we can be in grief about the things that are happening right now. And then we can also be in grief about the things that we know are going to happen. And so in that way, anticipatory grief has a different texture than, let's say, grief of sudden loss, kind of comparing those two. So I won't get into that too much. We can talk more about that after the meditation, but I just kind of wanted to set that up so that you had an idea and you can just kind of be with the process. And when we turn off our cameras and go mute, if you aren't by a window and you want to be by one, knowing that you're going to be looking as far as you can see out, then please do, and make yourself comfortable in that. So I invite you to go ahead and mute and turn off your cameras if you would like, and we will begin. So like I said, we're working with different aspects of ourselves, and it's this bridging of what we call interoception and exteroception, so that the perception of our interior versus our exterior. And it really is, it's kind of like fine slicing time. If you were to look at an airplane from far away, it looks like it's moving really slowly through the sky. But if you see yourself from inside that airplane and looking out and how fast you're passing clouds, it's really moving very quickly. And so that coincidence happens throughout our life all the time, and it has to do with our vision. So this centerpiece in your forehead, some people call it your third eye. You can just have it as a part of your body. It's all about your personal labeling. In this, I'm going to call it your third eye just so that it's an understanding. But go ahead and focus your attention on that space in your forehead and close your eyes. And try to put 100% of your perceptual awareness on your breathing or on this third eye center for 3 breaths. So go ahead and do that with 100%. Just breathing in and breathing out. Do that for 2 more breaths. And as you finish up your third breath, allow yourself to gently open your eyes and reach your palms out in front of you. If you're at a desk, go ahead and relax your elbows on the desk and just put your palms out in front of you. And focus on the surface of your body, as well as focusing on your breath. So you're splitting your attention between your hands and your breath for another 3 full inhales and exhales. So now we're really feeling the interoception and the exteroception as best as you can. Just notice how that feels as you finish those 3 breaths. And then allow your gaze to raise up just a little bit so that you're in a natural state, not looking out or not looking up, but just forward in front of you, maybe about 10 to 15 feet away. And focus your attention on that location while splitting your attention between your breathing and that location. And do that for another 3 breaths. And as you finish up these 3 breaths, allow yourself to focus on the furthest point that you can in your viewpoint, which may be a horizon or it might be an object way far away if you are being able to look out a window. And again, split your attention between that interoception of your breath experience and paying attention to that farther point, and imagine kind of a bridge between the two of you, because it might be a little tricky or challenging to focus on both. And allow yourself to move across that bridge back and forth. And then the last step before we repeat is focusing on this non-imaginary thing that we are a tiny speck on the ball floating out in space that's called Earth. And try to focus on your 3 breaths while also acknowledging that you are a very small body, literally on this very seemingly large body. That the Earth, it's floating in a much larger, expansive space in the universe. And do that for 3 breaths. So now close your eyes again and go back into interoception, into your breathing and into the forehead space of the third eye. And we're just going to go through with those simple word cues one more time. So we'll start now with your 3 breaths of interoception in your third eye. And opening your eyes gently and raising your hands out in front of you, gazing at your palms, splitting that intention 100%. So 50 and 50. Now drawing your gaze out about 10 to 15 feet. Now out to the horizon. And finally out into space, recognizing we're sitting on Earth as a very small being. And then allow yourself to close your eyes and just relax and notice what that felt like to move through this. Because by stepping through these different locations and deliberately placing our perception and our awareness on that internal aspect and then externally, we're essentially practicing an incredible ability to deliberately place our perception at a specific location along this continuum. And a lot of times when we've been external, like being on our phone, we forget about our body sensations. And this can affect a lot in our world. And so bridging the two is a really wonderful aspect. But the other part of that is that we are learning to be flexible and dynamic within ourselves and our world, to have awareness potentially of both of them at the same time without being overwhelmed. And it gives us the ability to be in our relationships in a different way, as well as being able to acknowledge where we are. Sometimes we get caught up in future thoughts and want to come back to the present. And this kind of practice allows us to do that much more readily. So just take one more deep breath in. And as you exhale, allow yourself to gently come back to the room. And we'll come together and talk a little bit more. So please feel free to unmute yourself and let's have a talk about what that was like, what comes up when you think about anticipatory grief for yourself, for your situation? Because the grief journey itself is so different for everyone, even when we all have similar bases that we're building off of. And some of us are at different points, and it's not linear, it jumps around. It's got that past, it's got that present, that future. And so I would love to just open up a discussion around that.